Country, we should rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll begin the hearings. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Tonight we're holding our public hearing to speak about the Southbridge Public Schools proposed operating budget for 2019. I'm pleased this evening to have Seth Racine, our Operations and Business Manager. He has prepared a presentation that we will first share with the audience, and then we'll have an opportunity for community members to share their concerns and opinions about the proposed budget. This time, Mr. Racine.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk about the fiscal 19 budget. So as you may recall, at the last meeting we talked about how we got here, as well as some of the challenges that drove us from here, both in terms of what we identified in fiscal year 18, as well as the declining enrollment. So we're going to talk about the status for fiscal year 19 tonight, as well as next steps after tonight. All right. So as we mentioned before, the Southbridge Public Schools faces a $3.1 million gap to balance fiscal year 2019. The gap was caused by underfunded costs identified in fiscal year 18, as well as flat revenue from the town. Our current fiscal year 2018, is out of balance due to higher than budgeted costs for out-of-district tuitions and transportation. To date, though, we've been able to identify $2.5 million in reductions, but we still face a $665,000 gap that we will need to close if we're unable to identify additional revenue. And hopefully, too, from this, we're able to then further minimize the cuts on the impact for the classroom. Now, I want to spend just a minute to talk about some important terms that we're going to be talking about in tonight's budget. So our fiscal year 18 budget, this is the current budget we're in right now, and it's from July 1 of 2017 to June 30th of 2018. When we talk about a fiscal year 2019 level service budget, this means what would our next year budget be without any reductions? And our fiscal year 2019 proposed budget is next year's budget after $2.5 million of reductions. From the slide you see in front of you, this is our 2018 funding sources, and I wanted to highlight to you both the large amount, about $27 million approximately, is our local appropriation, as well as a little amounts above it are different grants. And the big red bar that is part of the $27 million, this is about $21 million of state aid goes towards our town to make up the local appropriation. So the remaining approximately $5 million is from local revenue sources. So what is happening with our grants and our revenue for next year? So we are assuming a town appropriation of a 0% increase. And on top of that, we also project that some of our grants may decline, including many of our federal entitlement grants, Title I, 2A, for example, going down by approximately 5% due to declining enrollment. We also have an early education center state grant that is going down by 50% by approximately $35,000. And I want to use this slide as an example to talk about again, the growing challenges and the need that we need to do to create a long-term financial plan. Many of these grants are based on enrollment, and so as we have seen, we've had a trend of enrollment that's been declining over the years. So if they continue to decline, our grant revenue will also potentially decline, as well as two large grants that we're assuming for next year, our school redesign grant and our supplemental support grant from the state, are not recurring grants. These are one-time sources and that we've been receiving over the last couple years. And we cannot build a long-term financial plan assuming these revenue revenue sources to offer recurring costs. So really the point here for this slide is, again, trying to emphasize again the need to build a long-term financial plan based on recurring revenue sources that is sustainable and affordable for the town. For next year, very similar to the past year, almost our entire budget is in terms of people, buses, and out-of-district tuitions for students with severe disabilities. 69% of our budget is for salaries. 3% is for benefits, and this are benefits that we pay for. Does not include the health insurance costs that the town picks up on their side. In addition, another 9% of our budget is for transportation, and another 9% is for out-of-district tuition for students that we can't serve within the district, but that we place in out-of-district settings. We have worked very hard over the last couple of months since the superintendent has started to identify costs to be able to reduce the gap. As I mentioned before, the gap was approximately $3.1 million, and we've been able to identify $2.5 million of reductions in these broader categories. So as you can see here, we have the fiscal year 2018 budget, the FY29 level service budget, the next column to the right, is an example of what if we didn't make any cuts. And then you will see the variance of what drove a lot of these cuts or increases. And then you have the FY 2019 proposal, which is where we stand to date. So this is after $2.5 million of reductions. And then you'll have the variance. So the variance is from the 2019 proposal back to fiscal year 2018. So if you notice, just a few things to point out. The salaries were projected to go up by almost $2.4 million, and we've been able to reduce that down to a $200,000 increase due to eliminating approximately 31 positions. In addition, we've been able to find other savings. You'll see approximately an overall reduction of $265,000 in contracted services. And this is to a substantial reduction in the number of academic contracts that were paid for last year, that we've, as in this process, gone through sort of every single cost and figured out what is absolutely needed. And this is an example where we've reduced out-of-district contractors and other academic services, as well as under other expenses, you'll see a $100,000 decline, and that's really large driver of that is due to the reduction of travel and conferences that had previously been budgeted. I mentioned before that we reduced positions across almost every employee category, and you'll see here that some of the larger reductions for employee groups were in administrators on a percentage basis, educational assistants, and then just because there's so few, the secretary group, there was one position that was eliminated, but because there's only 8, it has a larger percentage decline, I should say. And so this is 31 positions that we were able to reduce for next year, and as part of the $2.5 million reduction. But again, as I mentioned before, there still is a $665,000 gap that we need to close. As part of the fiscal year 2019 budget, there are some notable priorities as well as reductions. So investments include the dual language program growing from the Eastford Road School up to the 2nd grade at West Street School. We continue to fund our teacher career ladder, creating very competitive salaries to be able to recruit the best and retain the best teachers we can for our students. We are creating additional central supports for social and emotional needs for our students, creating a rapid response team to provide better supports for these students, as well as we are providing additional investment into Southbridge Academy to create a therapeutic day program. This will do a variety of things, not only provide a better environment for our students and a better setting, as well as reduce out-of-district placement costs, tuition costs, as well as transportation. We highlighted this at the last meeting, and as well as tonight. that these costs continue to increase at a substantial rate, and this is one way that we can do to help curb some of those costs. One reduction that is worth noting is, as many may recall, for the current school year, we extended the day from last year, and there was a plan to extend it even further for next year. We have delayed that extension due to the financial cost. So in terms of next steps, this is our public hearing, an opportunity for public comment. We have a meeting with Town Council Subcommittee later this month, as well as the Town Council is expected to vote on a budget for May, where we may have an update about our appropriation. And in the meantime, we'll continue to create contingency plans if we do not identify additional revenue to close the gap. And as I mentioned at the start of this and throughout, all of this really emphasizes the point to build a long-term financial plan for the district so that we do not go through annual reductions, but we're able to create stability within the district and able to create a staffing plan and structure that can meet the needs of our students and create the best program we can. And so I'm sure you'll be hearing more about the budget in the coming months and years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Racine. I appreciate your, your presentation. So at this time, we will allow the public to make comment. I'd ask folks to limit their comments to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to step up and share your comments, we are here to listen. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Tom Morali. I'm a candidate for State Senate. I'm here today to just introduce myself to the committee. I know I've met several of you before. I just want to say that I think that Southbridge is currently in a position that it's really the best example of all of the problems in our state education system as they stand right now. I look forward to reaching out to each and every one of you and getting your perspective on how we can change our state education system to better serve the needs of all the communities in the Commonwealth, especially Southbridge. So I look forward to meeting you all and discussing how we can change this to make a better future for the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Receiver, members of the school committee. My name is Rick Nash, 50 Denison Cross Road, and I won't be able to stay through public input during the regular school committee meeting, so I'll thank you and Mr. Racine for the presentation and the overview, but I'll also take this opportunity as the chairperson of the Education and Human Services Subcommittee to invite the chairperson and members of the school committee to that meeting on April 26th, as we've already scheduled. Their input is extremely valuable, and I certainly hope that everybody will make it. Thanks again.
If there are no further comments, we thank you very much, and this portion of the meeting will be adjourned, and we'll start the school committee meeting promptly at 7. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge School Committee meeting of Tuesday, April 10th, 2018, 7 p.m. Call to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bishop?
Present.
Ms. Duval? Present. Mr. Lazo?
Excused.
Dr. Page?
Present.
Ms. Peliquin? Present. Mix Ryan?
Present.
Mr. Thomo?
Present.
6 present, 1 excused.
Thank you. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to address the school committee this evening? If so, please come to the podium and state your name and address. Anyone from the audience who would like to speak to the school committee this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of minutes. Any corrections, additions, deletions, anything that anybody would like to talk about from the February 13th minutes? Seeing none, anybody have any corrections, additions, deletions from the March 20th meeting?
I have a
McSryan?
question. Since since these are meeting minutes and the meeting ended at 7:04, anything afterwards shouldn't be included, I would think, because that's not a part of the meeting. Just as a formal, it shouldn't be
It's an
included.
adjunct.
Okay,
If the meeting
as I
end-
was not present, and I will defer to the receiver on this question.
You can strike them from the formal record, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't vote on that. Moving on to item 5, Chairman's announcements. First, I'd like to apologize to my colleagues on the committee and to the receiver. I was under the impression that the last month's meeting was canceled. I was texting back and forth with the receiver on my way to work. I wish I didn't have to say that, but I pulled over each time. I misinterpreted one of his texts, and so I was not here. I am happy that the receiver took the initiative to present the information that he had to roll out because it was time sensitive. And I thank Dr. Villar, and I do apologize to him again. I met with him shortly thereafter. It was a mix-up in communications. There was no nefarious motive to what I was trying to do. I was just I was at work. Okay, with that being said, I would like to compliment our high school jazz band. I was at the library probably 6 weeks ago. They were doing a public performance. It's always great to see our students out and about, representing our district in a positive light. Dr. Tomasino does a great job with the kids. We had attempted to get them to come play, but we're having some scheduling conflicts this evening. They are, in fact, performing at their high school, as they should be. So we'll try to get them and other groups in here to maybe highlight and showcase some of the good things that are going on in our school system. I would also like to reach out and take a moment to remember Tony Santilli Sr., who passed away a couple of days ago. Tony was my mentor. He was a phys ed teacher a long time in the school system. I worked closely with him. Our classrooms, he was in the gym, I was in the music area. We were very close to one another. And as I say, he mentored me when I first came into the Southbridge school system in 1980. I'll miss Tony. He was a good man. My thoughts go out to his wife, Helen, and all the children. Thank you. And finally, I just do want to ask, talking about our budget, I did read in this morning's Globe that, and maybe Dr. Villar is going to speak to this in a moment, but I did see that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had ponied up about $15 million for, as Desi likes to call them, the gateway cities that have serviced so many of the students who were negatively impacted in the hurricanes earlier this year. Do we have any idea if we will get any, or where we are with that?
We certainly are expecting monies. What we don't know is how much. Out of the $15 million, they have to develop a formula for distribution.
Thank you. That's it for Chairman's announcements. Moving on to new business. Good evening, Ms. Garcia. How are you this evening? Good. How is everything at 132 Torrey Road?
Oh, it's, good.
Good. We're looking forward to your report.
Okay, so I'm going to just announce some of the things like for the last meeting because I didn't get to. So on March 14th, the high school participated in the National School Walkout in order to protest against gun violence in schools and to support the high schoolers that died in Florida and their classmates who started a movement. Graduation's coming up June 1st, and senior night is May 30th. we started up the Spanish Honor Society again at our school, and the National Honor Society, Thespian Honor Society, all of those are gonna have an induction ceremony in May. We still are not sure about the date yet, so it's to be determined. Many winter athletes attended a banquet, and I wanted to congratulate Jared Figueroa and Jalitza Delgado for reaching their 1,000 points, which hasn't been done since 2009. And tonight's swag night, which is students with
Artistic gifts.
artistic gifts, okay. And so that's basically at our school like a yearly thing where we just get everybody that's in drama and like in computer classes and art, and they just showcase their work and their talent, and it's just a really fun time. We do it every year, so that's pretty much it. Unless you guys have any questions.
Anyone have any questions? McFadden?
It's not so much a question or a comment. I just want to, I wanted to say this last month too, but I want to thank you guys for all the work, or all the students across the country who went out and walked out on that day. You know, this is really important. And I remember back when I was in high school and the Sandy Hook shooting happened, I was deathly afraid. I was wondering, am I safe in my own school? So the fact that you took that and you're now using it as a way to lead forward and making substantial changes in this country is amazing, and it's nice to see young people really getting out and saying what's on their mind. So I want to thank all the students who participated in that walkout. It was hard and it was necessary.
Thank you. Yeah, we felt it was important, but we aren't really worried about that at our school because even though it's kind of like a love-hate relationship at our school, but we don't feel like unsafe with the things that are going on. It's really sad. So it was good to support the students in Florida.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Bishop, I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you. Regarding the walkout, it was a good cause, but were students forced to participate? And if they weren't, were they allowed to go to a other part of the school? That's one question. I think with the walkout, we've set a precedent. There may be other issues that come up, and if they do come up and groups are formed, I hope they're going to be able to protest in this fashion as our student body was able to protest.
I'm going to defer to Dr. Vla. He was at the scene, I would most likely assume.
Yeah, and as I made note, because our student representative did such a fine job of speaking about the behavior of the students and their leadership. Mrs. Farrick and I did go out and spend the about 25, 30 very cold minutes out with students, and we're very impressed with their voice and what they had to say and how they said it in a very respectful, meaningful way. They did express their opinions, and they did it in a way that left us very proud. We did have it videoed by folks at the school, and so that should be available online if you wanted to take a look and see Southbridge students representing our district in a very prideful way. As far as students who didn't want to participate, no one was forced to participate. We made that very clear to school leadership that was not to be the case, because this was an expression of opinion, and therefore we couldn't force that on them. And did you want to comment?
And it was done during advisory time, so it didn't take away any class time for any students, because advisory is just you just learn about things like scholarship and how to behave and stuff like that, so it didn't take away any class time at all.
No, my main concern was if people didn't want to participate, that they weren't forced into it. And like I said, I don't ever recall that ever happening in our system before, so we did set a precedent. And there could be issues that come up in the future. Mr. Bishop?
If I could comment to that. As you know, I'm a principal of a high school in a neighboring town. We had the same issue, and it was groundbreaking territory for many of us. We have an association, the Southern Worcester County League. We have a Principals Association 12, and Southbridge is part of that. We communicated back and forth as to how we were going to jointly handle the situation, and Each school handled it a little bit differently, but I don't think in any case students were forced out. I know in my building, we continued instruction as normal. No teachers were taken out of classrooms. No students were forced to come out of classrooms. And because of the weather, and we have a sizable field house, we moved ours indoors prior to the day of, and it worked successfully. There are events that are going to come up in schools, Mr. Tomo, that we're not prepared for, and we hope that we have administrative leadership that will rise to the occasion to come up with the best possible solution to the many challenges that we face on a daily basis. There is no textbook for every scenario, and we just hope that we do the best when something arises.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Anything else?
Yeah, no, that's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to 6B, Dr. Villar's announcements.
I did want to also reiterate congratulations to Jared Figueroa, our boys basketball player, finishing his high school career with 1,549 points. He holds Southbridge High School's record, leading male high scorer and second-time all-high scorer. He was named to the Central Mass first team. Also want to congratulate Julitza Delgado, who finished her career with 1,052 points. She was named the Southern Worcester County League first team as well. She's third leading female scorer holder and 8th all-time. So congratulations to those two athletes for representing our schools. I also want to point out that the West Street School's 4th grade teacher, Justin McKinnon's classroom was selected out of a national competition to win some pretty innovative teacher desk and student desks that are rolling on wheels and chairs and adjustable heights, allows kids to learn standing and sitting. We were just in that classroom yesterday and saw instruction happening with that new furniture. It was actually one class out of very few selected nationally, so it's a big deal. I think the school's going to hold open house at some point, and you'll be able to go in and see that furniture in play. It's very futuristic, but cool that we were selected, so I was proud to hear that. We heard comments about school safety. It is something that we are very concerned about. We've begun tours of buildings, working very closely with the Southbridge PD, identifying concerns that folks may have. I asked all staff and students through advisory periods to funnel up through administration any concerns that they may have about the buildings, and then we created a list and went through, and then took tours to identify and visualize any areas that were raised. And I'm pleased that, unfortunately, you find things like locks that don't work, that people weren't aware of, and we were able to quickly address some of those, what appear to be minor issues now, but in an event of a crisis can be serious issues. So we'll continue that vigilance. We have a tour scheduled for the high school, and that will finish all 5 buildings. Also wanted to make sure that we were aware that we are currently engaged in a high school principal search. I have advertised and putting the word out to those folks, some of our fellow educators, the chair sitting next to me. We need to really reach out and find the right leader for Southbridge High School. We will have an advisory committee. The chair has agreed to help serve on that committee as we look at applicants. Important is someone who's willing to commit a timeline to our community here, because I need a team that's going to stay. Right? A team that's going to work and build some consistency. It's a great school, great student body. So if you know somebody that's interested, please have them log into our website and they can apply online. So that, right, there's a summary of the comments. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Villar. 6C, 2018-2019 budget update. Mr. Racine, is that you? Are you doing an update on the, is that somewhere else? Not quite sure. It's on the agenda, so I wasn't sure if you were going to.
Sure, I'm happy to take any questions. We presented just before this at a public hearing, as well as we provided an overview at the March meeting as well.
Any questions? Ms. Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I'm going to try to be civil about this. I was wondering, are we as in the public going to get a full line item budget? Because this is more of a summarization. Last year, we as school board members and EHS members got full binders for the budget. So I'm wondering, are we going to get a full, as we've customary gotten under past receivers and past superintendents, a full binder with the budget, because this doesn't tell me much. This doesn't tell me where we're actually nickeling and diming in each part of in each broad line item.
So what this is an object level budget that would allow you to see the priorities and the spending in the district and the appropriation of funds by object. What you're asking for is a management level budget, and candidly, that's the budget that the receiver puts together. This is the exact information that is shared with town councils across New England when making huge financial decisions. This is the line item, the object level items that are necessary to understand expenditures in the district. So that's why we're sharing it with you. You can take a look and see it, the level of staffing, you can see the level of benefits, where we're spending money on transportation, the educational priorities in that way. What you can't see is how many boxes of chalk Charlton Street might buy and how many boxes of chalk that West Street might buy, but candidly, those are management decisions, and that rolls up to an object level budget.
Well, as I would state for the record, that's the budget we've got in the past, and if EHS gets this, don't vote on it. They deserve, the public deserves to know every single penny that's being spent. When we're talking about a $3.16 million cut, we deserve to know. And if it's been the past practice, the receivership should continue to honor that past practice.
Thank you. Any other members? Go ahead, Ms. Peliquin.
I know we're in receivership, so we're not voting on this, but based on this information, I wouldn't feel confident casting a vote on this budget. There's just not enough information.
I'm sorry, Amir, could you, I'm sorry.
It's not a
that wasn't
budget.
clear.
It's not a budget bill. That's all I want to say. This is not, no, we get a binder every year and we're not getting one.
Yep.
I don't know why this year's different.
Well, as you know, budget is under the complete discretion of Department of Education and their agent, in this case, Dr. Villan.
And to be fair, it's public information that should be given to the public.
Like, do I have to file a public records request?
Maybe we should.
To get the budget? Like, could there be a copy at the library for people to look at or something? I understand we don't have a lot of money for paper, so maybe printing 9 of them is redundant, but if there was one somewhere we could review, maybe that would be nice.
So this is an object level budget, so you have the budget.
No, I heard you
And-
the first time, that's fine.
And the object level budget is designed to show the priorities and expenditures of the district. What you're asking for is a breakdown.
I'll file a public records request.
You may do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would remind the board, the school committee, that as a receiver, I am charged with the production of this budget. And I have to communicate that to the community. And really, the major responsibility and assist that members of the school committee can do is to begin a positive dialogue about the Southbridge Public Schools, instead of making each event negative news media coverage. And so what we need to be doing is working together to improve the school district. And that means that we're all going to do things a little differently. But the decisions that we have to make are important decisions that impact the lives of the kids in our community. And we need to have better outcomes to candidly do a better job for the kids. And we can do that if we work together. But if we bicker about which items you used to get and which reports you're used to versus the information that we have, this is very useful, actionable information. We haven't gotten past the first page. We're not doing the service to the children of the community.
Alex Ryan.
Yeah, no, I disagree strongly with that. This is about accountability. This is about making sure that we're doing what we can to make sure we go through this budget and make sure that we're doing the best for our kids. So I'm sorry you feel that's media. I disagree. And I asked to meet with you about this budget. I contacted your office, and you're refusing to meet with school board members. So if we can't meet with you, if we can't have these discussions, I've had longer and gotten more information from the town manager's office than from you. That's unacceptable. This is not about your predecessors, your past receivers have done more to give us information. This is about you doing your job as a receiver now. This is not just, you're not even filling the shoes of the past 2 or past 3. This is, I'm sorry, no, I've been doing this for 5 years. This is a disgrace, this is disgusting, and this is not what should be happening. And I'm sorry you feel you disagree, but I'm gonna stand firm on that and be filing that public information request.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Tomo.
Yes, can I comment on the budget itself?
Certainly.
And try to figure a way of maybe cutting our expenses? Something, thinking out of the box. If you look at the transportation costs, all right, presently we have the buses go to the high school twice in the morning, twice in the afternoon for pickups. Since each bus has audio and visual on each bus, couldn't we do everything in one run to reduce the cost? I'd like to have a comment from the receiver on that.
Certainly.
Just thinking out of the
Yeah.
box. I mean,
I very much appreciate your thinking on that level, and candidly, not that long ago, the system, it's my understanding, the system did shift to different start times at the middle and high school.
Right.
So what could be a savings if we are trying to, close that final gap, you could consider changing the educational day for students, right? And
you don't get
put
a
both.
15, 20-minute.
But you'd have to put both schools onto the
Right.
same schedule. So one of the priorities that we have to think about in that circumstance is the value of that savings versus how it impacts the educational program. So certainly welcome the thinking. We'd have to probe into that and see what impact that has. But that is an area where there's an expense associated with the educational program for sure.
And one other comment regarding safety, since it was brought up. I retired from the high school 2 years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the school opens at 6 a.m. with the custodians. And roughly by 7:15, 7 o'clock, the students come in on buses. Is that correct? About that.
About
Well, I'm, from a personal standpoint, when I would go to school, I'd get there usually about 6:30. And I would have a clear run. The doors are open. There's nobody at that first tier of security. People, even in the offices, were not there yet. Assistant principals they were located on the second floor. I would run into students just doing their homework. I think the next time you look at security, I think that should be addressed. Because there is a gap of a half hour where you can just walk into that school and who knows what. We are a small town, but it's just a thought.
No, thank you. And actually, that's an area that we have had conversation about, and we're seeking quotes for electronic key card access to all the buildings.
Right. We used to have a wand, like,
Well, and it is something that could be engaged at the high school. It's a very costly system, but it is something we're looking at. It'd likely require a capital outlay from the town of Southbridge to support the work. There are large-scale changes like that
Yeah.
that certainly would make it better, and that's what we're looking at. But we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
or
for types of
even
systems.
if you could have, teachers have duties, I'm assuming, where maybe something could be worked out on a rotating basis where a teacher is there at 6:30, 6:15, right at that first tier, right at that door when people are walking in.
I think your comments will be taken under advisement. We'll figure it out.
No, it's just-
It is an issue that I think you'll find most school systems are struggling with, is how do you provide a complete, locking down of the facility?
It's-
And you mentioned a time where, there's nobody there.
That half hour.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding the budget? With 2018, this current fiscal year's budget. Any other comments on that? Seeing none, we'll move on to 6D. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 8th, 2018, 7 p.m. in this arena. Moving on to item 7, members' forum. Any member have anything they'd like to bring forward this evening? Mrs. Pelican?
I have two things. The first, I would like to announce that I am organizing a charity walk that services Worcester County homeless families. So I would like to invite you all to attend. The event is Sunday, May 20th at Elm Park. It is a fundraiser to benefit homeless families in Worcester. Funds raised by the walk will benefit Central Massachusetts Housing Alliance, which is a nonprofit that provides services and advocacy for families who are either homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, as well as the Interfaith Hospitality Network, which is the only non-government family homeless shelter in Worcester County, as well as the I'm so sorry, I have a cold. As well as the St. John's Food for the Poor mission on 44 Temple Street in Worcester. So I'd like to hand those out. And I also have a letter that you and I had talked about writing, but I was hoping maybe somebody else could read it because I'm losing my voice.
Well, certainly, maybe Mr. Lau would like to read that, or Ms. Mix-Ryan.
And just for the public, a number of people on the school board have expressed an interest in endorsing a candidate in the state senate race, and we cannot do that as a body outside of the meeting because it would violate the open meeting law. So I have a letter. Then if those of us on the board feel moved to sign the letter, there is spaces available for signature.
This is the letter to the citizens of Southbridge. Southbridge Public Schools has failed to achieve the potential we know they are capable of reaching. The district has suffered unreasonably high turnover, cycling through more than a half a dozen superintendents since 2010, and under state control for 4 receivers in 2 years. This condition has left the boot spinning in the middle of the lake, and our students are without paddles. We have seen charter schools siphon the district's resources and know too well the negative ramifications that they have on public schools. Meanwhile, many of our political leaders are calling for more throughout the state. The outdated Chapter 7 education funding formula has put tight financial strains on the district, failing to account for personal and special education costs and leaving our schools burdened for money year after year, and yet it has not been touched by Beacon Hill since 1993. Our current leadership has failed to take charge on these issues, and through their negligence has allowed Southbridge children to pay the price for the failure of adults. It is for these reasons that we, as members of the Southbridge School Committee, endorse Tom Morelli for State Senate in the Worcester and Norfolk District. Mr. Morelli has spoken strongly about the issues affecting our town, and we believe as a state senator he will fight for a proper education for Southbridge students and a reform system that will better aid teachers and administrators. We embrace his education platform and are proud to support him.
That's it? Yeah, that's it. So if anybody would like to sign that, I will have that after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything for the this evening? Mix-Ryan?
I would just like to reiterate, it was mentioned in the public hearing, but I'd also like to reiterate. There was an EHS meeting scheduled for the 26th to talk about the Southbridge School District budget. I urge everyone, please come. This is the body that actually can have profound change, make some sort of changes within the budget for the better of our students. So I'm going to be looking over the little we have. Hopefully we get more, and going to that meeting. And I hope all the citizens that really care about improving Southbridge Public Schools come to that meeting and push for substantive changes in this. Thank you.
That's next Tuesday.
The 26th.
Huh?
The 26th.
Mr. Tomo, anything?
No, fine.
Dr. Page?
I'm all set. Thank you,
All
Mr. Chair.
set. No, hearing no one else? I'll accept the motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. See you on the 8th.
Mr. Bishop?